Well, good morning and welcome everybody. I'm Phil Suter from the Greater Keene Chamber, and this is another in our series of what we call Coffee and Conversation, and something we started doing when the pandemic hit around March. And as most of you know, we used to do some regional issues series in-person gatherings on a kind of a regular basis, and that clearly wasn't possible. So this was our attempt to try to keep engaging people in the community on various issues in kind of a similar format, but quite different. So I appreciate all of you joining us, and I'm really pleased that Dr. Melinda Treadwell from Keene State College has joined us this morning. And there's a lot going on at Keene State, as most of you, I'm sure, are aware. But in a couple of conversations I've had with Melinda over the past week or two, we thought it would be really important for her to have a chance to talk about some of the things that have been going on, so you can hear from her directly. So we will we'll start off by just a couple of things between Melinda and me. I have some questions, and we have some broad sort of categories we want to make sure get covered. But the primary purpose of this that we'll get to around the bottom of the hour is to engage all of you. So as Phyllis said, there are a couple of ways to do that. It is useful just in terms of managing this kind of thing to put some questions in the chat box, or even just say I have a question, just so we make sure that we call on you. There's also a way to raise your hand if you want to do it that way. I forget what that is, but anyway, there is a way to raise your hand. Yeah, that's one way, Kenny. So we'll try to get to everybody, and we want this to be kind of a free-flowing exchange of information, and hopefully we'll be a little bit better informed about what's up at Keene State in about an hour. So with that, welcome, Melinda. And I'd like to start off with, and this is in no particular order, there are kind of three broad questions that I have for you, and I know others will have different questions. But my first question is, and something that I think would be useful for people to hear from you about, is that for the past couple of years anyway, you have been very involved in what people have called a kind of a right-sizing or restructuring of the college to kind of align with enrollment and other things, and maybe 21st century education and some other things like that. And that's been going on right up until recently. And so maybe you can walk us through kind of the origins of that exercise, what brought it on, what steps have been taken kind of along the way, and where you stand now, and whether we should expect or not expect additional things in the future. So
sure. Thanks so much. Thank you, Phil, and thank you all for spending time with me over coffee, water, whatever your beverage of choice is this morning. But thank you for the opportunity. And as Phil and I've been talking through the past several months, frankly, of kind of where we are, and especially in the last few weeks, it's really important to make sure the business community and the chamber are aware of kind of updates. We did a lot of this in my first year back at Keene. So just to strike kind of, as Phil asked, where are we coming from? In fall of 2017, when I returned as the interim president, you've all read the newspaper during that first year, but we've had a significant enrollment decline. It was approximately a 30% decline when I entered. We've drifted as we've stabilized, because some of the larger classes have graduated out of the institution. And so we are now stabilized at around 3,200 students. And so that's down from our high water mark of 5,400. And if we look at what the right size for Keene State is historically, we've done a lot of review of the capacity of our campus. 5,400 was too big. It was too big for us, and it was frankly a challenge for the city. If you'll all recall conversations in the 2010 to 2012 range. So we are working toward a target of our enrollment being approximately 3,200 undergraduate students, and then a number of students who would be in low residency or hybrid, particularly unique graduate programs that Keene State offers. So you can imagine occupational safety and health, which is one we have moved online. Since my return to the college, the faculty have done brilliant work, and we worked with Granite State to do that. We also are working on an online nutrition and public health program, which would be another unique element for Keene State. And now with the new Cohen Center director, an online program in Holocaust and genocide studies. So we've been working for the last 2 years to think about programs we could move to new markets, to speak to our business community. How do we expand the reach of this campus, but not add more burden to the city and to the college resources if we're going to stabilize at 3,200. So that really has been a purposeful effort. We've also worked very, very closely with our faculty, and we've launched micro-credentials, which are small credentials that people can receive through work with colleges and universities. It's been a growing trend. In higher ed, it's something that is new to the university system of New Hampshire, and we just approved a broad number of micro-credentials in the fall, and these are, again, bite-sized 9-credit experiences that individuals in the workforce can come and access at Keene State, and we're looking at ways to offer those through virtual connection as well, and some on-campus programming. So those have been big moves on the academic side of the house to try to solidify our market. The good news on enrollment is that we have increased retention. So the students we attract to Keene State we're keeping, and we are up approximately actually I think we're projecting a 5% increase over where we started in the 2017-2018 academic year. So those are all good trends for stabilizing enrollment. Our admissions team and the team here looking at marketing and positioning where Keene State is are doing really great work, and we need to really increase the effort out of state, because the biggest impact to our budget is that we've really grown the in-state market. We're up 11%, but we have lost some of that out-of-state market, partly because of regional competition and partly because we're not well communicating in those markets what is unique at Keene State and the city of Keene. So I think the promoting the region work of the chamber, we've been a big supporter for that because it increases the recognition for the college and the city, and that will help us. So that's the enrollment picture. We have also been, since I came in, we had a very significant structural gap where our operational expenses, given that enrollment decline, had not been balanced. For the past 2 years, we've been working on right sizing, as Phil identified, kind of what are the right number of faculty and staff for the size of our enrollment. Approximately 3 weeks ago now, at the end of a 2-year process working with our faculty to look at our data, to look at objective information and make decisions about where we may have excess faculty capacity and not enough faculty capacity for all those academic program changes and strengthening efforts. We've made a decision where we announced some faculty line reductions, and we're working with the faculty over this year. We'll see a reduction of 15 faculty at Keene State, and those all come as a result of that objective data review where we have too many faculty for the size of the programs or the number of credits delivered by some programs. We've just not dealt with strategic hiring in the face of attrition, so we have an imbalance. We have announced that. That's a big move for a college to say that they're trying to change their faculty complement. It's necessary, and our faculty were a part of this from the very beginning, and it was a year of analysis before I announced those changes. And we didn't close programs. I don't think that's a solution for us. I think we have to grow some programs, and we need to find ways to get outside our demographics, as I described, and to work with the system campuses at UNH and Plymouth. We all have tiny modern language programs, and so we can't lose modern languages as part of a public health mission, but how can Keene State serve to deliver a major that is tiny on perhaps the other 2 campuses by drawing students to us? And the presidents and provosts are talking about study away programs in the system. So your degree is from Plymouth, you study 3/4 of your work at Plymouth, but you come to Keene for your major during that period. So it's a study away at Keene State. And we're talking about programs Plymouth would offer that Keene won't. And there will be a lot of continued changes in that area as our faculty identify new options. So that's on the faculty side of the house, the academic program, and the enrollment. On the staff side, we've been doing a lot of work over the last 2 years. I've been communicating with the campus that we have to make sure that our administrative expenses, so from my level to the cabinet level to 2 levels down, the administrative leadership of the campus, not the line delivery, but the administrative leadership, is appropriate to our enrollment and our character of our campus. We haven't really addressed this for a number of years, and the one place that we're exceeding our peers in all categories is administrative expense. And it's frankly, we have a relatively modest investment at the president and cabinet level. We have a broad number of directors, associate directors, assistant vice presidents, the level just below the kind of middle management level. And many of our businesses have gone through this, where you have to address that issue so that you have a lean leadership and enough resources to deliver your program. So last Friday, I did announce a first phase of leadership restructure at Keene State. When I first came in, I reduced 8 assistant or associate vice president positions. I will reduce further. We currently have 6 remaining. We will reduce to 3 in that category over the next couple of weeks. We have also announced last week my decision. We had Huron Consulting Group and a lot of data review over the last year. Our leadership team will be aligned to the student experience rather than to our traditional structure. So I eliminated a vice presidential position in this restructure, 2 of them actually, a chief enrollment officer and a vice president for student affairs. And in that move, there was a resignation. Dr. Kamal Atkins, who has really been a brilliant leader on our campus, announced that he would move on after 6 years. And so we're working really closely. He will have my strong support because he will continue to excel in higher ed, I know it. But our move to create one single vice president in enrollment and student engagement to replace those 2 was a purposeful move so that we connect the enrollment process. And we're now with a vice president for enrollment and student engagement, a vice president for finance and administration, a vice president for advancement and constituency relations, and a vice president for academic affairs. Those will be the vice president roles. That is down from 7 when I first entered the campus, and this is the final step of the leadership realignment. So what will happen this year is we are now working on the level below the cabinet. How do we right size from the assistant or associate vice president level down through our director level? And we have very generous severance and voluntary retirements. These will be strategic. We've reserved the right to say no, because we can't let everyone who wishes to retire. And our system has been supportive of this. The board actually funded those separation packages. So you'll hear about changes in staffing and numbers. These right sizing efforts are to get us to the final $3 million gap that has continued to exist at Keene State. We did our first reduction. We've continued to have a $3 million operational gap. The changes in the faculty and this leadership change alone will reduce our expenses by a little over $5 million. And so this is how we get to a balanced operational budget and then begin to focus on the future ahead, which is actually really bright for Keene State, given our retention numbers, given our performance metrics. If COVID were not here with us, everything would be rosy. And I'd be able to tell you a really good story that we've hit our target, we've done it on time. And the faculty and staff are ready to really design how do we focus on our students and move ahead. But that was announced last Friday. So if you're hearing any ripples, and we'll be talking with Sentinel this week to give some more detail as well. And frankly, none of this is a surprise to the campus. I shared a timeline of all of these conversations, and it was 4 pages long of the briefings and the specific details. So the campus was waiting, and they actually said, please pull the Band-Aid, let's get on to the other side of this. And that's where we are right now. So long answer, but hopefully that grounds you all with the decisions that have been underway and the research that's been underway. We did a lot of work thinking and listening before we announced these changes. I'm confident they're the right changes for the campus. And it puts us in a really very competitive position moving forward.
Well, thank you for that, Melinda. One quick follow-up question before I move on to the other subjects. And that is that at times like this, when you have something like a pandemic, not that any of us had any experience with that before 6 months ago. Or economic downturns and, other challenges like that. And this is, Keene State is a business as well as an educational institution and an employer and all that. Even the chamber is going through the same thing. You have to sort of think about shutting down or cutting back or all those kinds of things. At the same time, you have to think about what you're investing in for the future. And what, you can't just stop everything and you can't pretend there isn't a future coming. And one thing that comes to mind that is certainly going to be very beneficial to the business community is the business hub.
Yes.
And maybe you could say a little bit about the business hub and where that stands now and why that's going to be an important part of the future.
Thanks, Phil. So over the past 2 years, we've been talking about the development of a business hub. That work began in the spring of 18 when More Nanotech, BAE Systems, Smith and Corning, a number of the precision manufacturing industries came to us saying they knew we had our SPEEDY program, the Sustainable Product Design and Innovation Program, but there was no institution they could go to get talent, particularly in the area of optics. When you think about use of light and telecommunications, satellite and imaging arrays, things that are really important to what is a kind of a niche market for the southwestern part of the state and for BAE Systems. And Keene State leaned in and said we would develop with our physics, mathematics, and the SPEEDY program an optics focus that would either be a part of the undergraduate experience or working with River Valley and UNH, a full spectrum from associate's level, micro-credential level, all the way up to doctorate in engineering. So we began mapping what that curriculum would look like. And what we did differently was our faculty worked with the engineers in those businesses to design that curriculum. We went to the governor during our budget appeal asking for support so that we could build the bricks and mortar facility for some of the advanced equipment. We didn't have the space to do that. And with our curriculum would either be delivering it on site at individual businesses, or we could create an opportunity in the city of Keene for this to become a magnet for creativity and business growth, particularly for Cheshire County and the southwestern part of the state. The governor was very supportive of a business hub. We requested resources to construct a 25,000 square foot facility that not only would house the optics specialization, but some areas of emerging growth in higher ed. If we're going to be ready 5 years from now, we need augmented reality, virtual reality, training and education spaces, particularly for majors like construction safety. We're the only program in the country, and you can either erect three-dimensional scaffolding or use virtual to do it. So we're going to be investing in virtual education opportunities with the construction industry. So we needed spaces to do that. The governor supported it, but we didn't survive the budget process. And so that investment was not in the budget. But MEDIC and the city of Keene came to us and the chamber saying, we think that we can find other funding resources to do this if you can move the board and we can have an opportunity to use new market tax credits and the development grants available and try to fund this in a different way. I have been so appreciative of the city, MEDIC, the chamber, and the business community, frankly, for the support behind us on this. Our board is fully supportive. We're in the final phases now. The new market tax credits have dropped. One of the community development groups has received those credits and is aware of our business hub project. So we're full steam ahead because this is investing in the future and we need this for the city, and the college is proud to be a partner. We are on path to develop. The architectural firms have submitted their RFPs. We expect to break ground in the spring and have had tremendous support up and down the board here. So the board is on, our board of trustees is on board, the city's on board, and we will expect to have a business hub up and operating in the fall. We've been delivering the credits and the curriculum in some beta tests here over the last 6 months, and we'll continue that for the next year. But this is really important, and the augmented and virtual reality is as well. What COVID has taught us is students wish to learn in different ways from multiple places. They wish to be in the classroom, but they also appreciate flexibility to learn outside the classroom. And our faculty have done tremendous work. And I think the future for us will be not online or place-based. It will be a combination of the two. And what we're doing in this hub will help test those methods and help our faculty think about teaching and learning ahead of the curve, not just going online, which is we are very far behind the curve on that. That helps us get to new demographic groups, but how do we deliver a different type of education? And Keene has been a leader in open ed and in virtual education development, and I'm excited to see where that will go. Our faculty are really energized around it. So thanks, Phil. That's
great, Melinda. The Business Hub is going to be a big deal. I'll say it, and there will be a number of opportunities for businesses in and around Keene to be supportive of some of the later pieces of the puzzle, including some of the equipment that will be needed for the facility. And we're working with Medic and with the college on that, and we'll let people know what those opportunities to support that effort are in months ahead.
If I could add, Phil, one thing for the group, because although we're focusing on optics as our initial target, that has been what we knew the business community needed right out of the gate, we're also realizing that there are other areas of business development, accounting, financial management, some of those other types of programs, and the Business Hub itself, although it will be an anchor for some of the emerging teaching and learning on augmented and virtual education, the optics hub, but there are just maker spaces and classroom spaces to enhance what Hannah Grimes has developed downtown, so that there are additional spaces for creative engagement and for businesses to come to us. The facility itself is next to our business management major, and that was purposeful, and to the community college storefront. So we intentionally have located this business hub to draw from the best that we have to offer with ourselves and our partners, and also to hopefully draw in the business community to use that facility with us, not just for optics, but for other anchor creative areas with the businesses need for talent. That's going to be an economic engine, and we hope the business community will come to us and ask us for what you need, and we'll work with you to build it.
Excellent. You mentioned briefly sort of the effects of COVID and all of that. Maybe just give us some general thoughts on how you think COVID is changing higher ed, and generally, and how it's changing Keene State.
Yeah, so generally, I think what the spring taught us, so leading up to the spring, everyone was really pushing for online as the solution and the future for higher ed. We've all seen SNOOS announcements that they're going to offer the $12,000 degree. What is not included in that is the fees that are associated with it, and the fact that under a SNOOS future model, the students will live on campus, but they'll study fully online. So there are some very innovative ideas that are underway. But what we learned in the spring for the university system of New Hampshire, and I think this was broadly applicable across most colleges, students want to learn and be in a college environment. So we have to look at our business model, we've got to look at our cost profile, but the students that we serve, over 93% of our students are coming back. They wish to be back learning. Fewer than 240 students are wanting a fully online experience at Keene State. So I think what the pandemic taught us was that although students are very comfortable creating knowledge in social networks, very comfortable learning in different ways, they still want the three-dimensional classroom experience. They still want to be in a college setting. And it is, by and large, about engaging with the faculty and creating knowledge with them in that space. So that was a really interesting point, because it kind of tipped, to Bobby's owl image, it tipped the whole market. We were all thinking, and a lot of pundits were saying it's online, that's the future. Online has a segment, and there is certainly, we can't turn our back on any demographic. We're going to have to be really smart about it. And I think it's going after targeted program no one else can offer, that we can then command a low volume, high margin type of opportunity. That's going to be where we go with online. And the pandemic confirmed that for me, is that our students broadly want to be on campus. Some of our programs have appeal outside, and we need to get them online so we can expand that. The other thing that I think the pandemic taught us was that our faculty were very nervous about going online. And in all of the areas where people think you can't do that online, dance, musical performances, some of our labs, our nursing program, teacher certification, the students and the faculty actually pivoted so quickly to fully remote. And what I heard from some of our students, which was really eye-opening, was from our nursing students. I talked with a student and she said, you know, I could never hear what the instructor was telling me about the sound of the blood flow through the spleen, but when I went to the virtual, I could hear it. I could understand what the instructor was trying to tell me. And now I fully understand kind of what I'm listening for. What I can't do virtually is palpate an organ, like the three-dimensional. So it's a combination of the two. So our faculty are changing teaching and learning to use simulation and remote learning and to combine that with 3 dimensions. That's the future, I think, of higher ed. And the pandemic has forced us to stretch ourselves in ways that we wouldn't have naturally gone to, and we never would have learned about some of the real strength of teaching in that way. So that's very different. I think what it also taught me is that, and the board asks me what keeps me up at night probably twice a week. And I think my only answer now is it's a pandemic. And we just don't know where it will turn at any moment. It's been very challenging to keep up with the science and to make sure that we're doing everything we can. I am broadly confident in our plan and in what we've put in place. And I am confident that we're going to struggle with people not taking it seriously. And we have that already in broad society, but we're going to be right on it with our students. That's what I've also learned is the importance of us educating and reaching out. That's why I did the town halls with students yesterday. And our students want to do what they can to be here in person and to keep the community safe. So that's been really important.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. I know that both Kenny Ballard and Dave Westover have some questions, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But one final thing I wanted you to touch on, and some of this has been reported, but maybe just a quick update on the reopening, which is underway.
Yes.
And some of the protocols that you have in place and all that. And I know we've been in touch with Kelly and some others on your team about how to communicate with businesses, particularly in downtown Keene and all that.
So thank you. And I want to start with saying thank you. A number of names on this call have heard this presentation, so I'll be very brief on kind of some of the details, but happy to answer questions. And I just really want to thank the City of Keene. I think we would not be in this position of being able to reopen if it weren't for really close partnership with the City of Keene. The work with City Council to try to understand that a normalized experience of mask usage, for instance, is a necessary element of helping us drive behavioral change and response for our students, our faculty, our staff, for the City of Keene. It's a very important way to reduce risk. And the city leaning in with us and being supportive in this way, I can't, thank you is not enough. It's really an important element, and we've been very fortunate. In addition to the city, I would say the hospital, we would not be in the position of confidence that I hold with regard to the ability to respond quickly, the ability to work really closely with our hospital. The hospital is offering us so much support with regard to care and infectious disease consultation and support, testing support. We wouldn't be ready if it weren't for the relationship with the city and the hospital particularly, but with the entire community. We know that this is concerning. And what we developed was a very aggressive, very strict plan. First and foremost in that plan was to make sure that we knew every faculty, staff, and student member who came to our campus would test negative for COVID, and that we would have a valid, which means the most accurate test possible, analysis completed within 9 days of their arrival. We will test them again next week. Everyone will be tested again, and we will universally screen a third time. We will then move to surveillance testing every week, and we are negotiating right now with Quest to try to move to a universal screening weekly, or a continued, we're moving to 25% random. The infectious disease leads have said 10% weekly is probably adequate. We're going to go more aggressive than that. And UNH is trying to stand up a lab, but they will continue to work on that. And as they're ready, they will help support weekly screening as well for us, but they need to have the space to get their lab up and running fully and their student body as well. So the testing is essential, because if we know the status and we can rapidly identify and isolate positive cases, we will contain any risk of spread. That is the priority of our plan. Quest, our strategy for students was for them to use a mail home kit that the students could have a telehealth appointment, have a nurse or a healthcare practitioner observe their collection of their swab through Zoom, and then send their samples. They would seal the bags and send them, so we knew the integrity of the sample and the accuracy of the sample. Their telehealth appointments were not adequate to meet the student demand for the university system. We overwhelmed them very quickly, and then we had to pivot to some other methods. As a result of that testing not being administered by a healthcare professional or observed by a healthcare professional for all of our students, I delayed our move-in to a few days later. So we moved some students in yesterday. We will have others who have negative tests, who have cleared all of our processes, begin to move in on Wednesday, and then the rest of our student population will move in this weekend. UNH is bringing their rapid test unit over for us to help us if anyone arrives without a test, or they arrive with a test that's outside a window of 9 days since their last test. We will test them on site before we allow entrance to the campus in the city. They'll be tested at Criff Road. So there is a very rigorous testing protocol at Keene, more rigorous, frankly, than any other campus around us. And that is because of the close proximity of this campus to the town. And I will not sacrifice that. So we have had a lot of frustrated families. We are crediting the families for their expenses that they couldn't access by moving in on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. If they aren't in on their scheduled time, we will credit that differential for them. And so we've tried to be very accommodating to the families about the financial and the life impact disruptions of this, but I am not going to sacrifice that at the outset. It is the only way. It's not just about opening, it's about staying open. And staying open means we have a clear baseline, and then we work aggressively to manage it. And so that is what we're doing. And Dawn Caruso at the hospital and I have been on the phone all weekend. The city is helping us, the hospital is helping us with anything that occurs now through Wednesday, and they will be providing, as part of an agreement with us, medical support to an upper respiratory clinic, which we're standing up so that we refer and deal with our student, faculty, and staff population here, but through partnership with Cheshire Med. So I feel really good about the entry, and it's been bumpy just because we didn't have the results, but we weren't willing to open without those. The other things I'll just name briefly, all of our classrooms have been reduced in occupancy by 62%. So we are administering a strict requirement for 6-foot spacing in all of our spaces on campus. We have an aggressive education program with requirements for mask usage in all locations on campus, unless you're in your private room or private office alone or with your roommate. We are requiring that students take their temperature daily, that our faculty and staff take their temperatures daily, and there are symptoms that we're monitoring. And if any issues, we're asking our students to aggressively check it out so that we can test rapidly and get them out of the circulation. So we're very rigorous. We've cast a very tight net, and the goal is to have a shot at actually living and working during a pandemic and returning some normalcy. Everyone wants to know about conduct. So let me just end with this and we'll open it up for questions. The educational campaign, the meetings I did with all of our students yesterday who are on campus, I'm going door to door with our off-campus students. We are going to continue to have very clear messaging. We have expanded our student conduct expectations with a 3 strikes and you're out if you're not following our requirements. We are working, however, that is our stick. Our carrot is our students wish to be here, and we're all in this together. And I've been asking for the students to help us stay open, which means do the simple things like wear a mask, keep your distance, don't gather in parties. And if you are gathering in parties, you'll be subjected to the city requirements as well as the college requirements. And our requirements will mean swift adjudication and action, and UNH and Plymouth are doing the same with their communities. I will say, the one other thing that I will offer is that the social host ordinance that we've worked with the city, the neighbors brought together, the city has worked very hard on this. It isn't coming from COVID, but it will certainly help us limit by stiffer penalties in relationship with the city and the college, any behavior that's outside ordinances within the city walls. The social host ordinance will help us have additional tools. And we've been supportive of it and continue to work with the city on this. And our students off campus will know it. But what I want all of you to know is I've met with hundreds of students, and every one of those students has said to me, we do not wish to cause harm. We wish to be back, and we're going to do everything we can to support you. All of them signed a community commitment acknowledgement stating that they would adhere to our requirements. Anyone breaching those will be subject to conduct, and it's going to be a constant management for us for the first few weeks. We know it, but we're on it, and we're working closely with the city on it as well. And if we can't demonstrate that we can adhere to it, I will not hesitate to close the campus. So the margin is too close for us on this, and our safety standards are too high. The last thing I'll say is we will be publishing a dashboard. So we're working with Johns Hopkins and UNH right now. There will be a daily dashboard that I'm monitoring for all the requirements of our plan. We have a management team that includes city and hospital representatives that will begin meeting next week on a twice daily level to look at test results, to look at conduct violations, all the things in our plan, all of our requirements. And we have a COVID normal, a remote COVID or limited access COVID, where we would begin to change our instructional delivery and our operations, and then a fully remote on our dashboard. And so we will be publishing a dashboard of those things for the public, because I think it's important that the public see and understand what's going on. And we're working very closely to make sure we're being transparent about everything we can.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Melinda. And we're going to spend the rest of the hour with your questions. And I thought I would lead off, maybe appropriately so, with Dave Westover, who has, I don't know how many years of connection to Keene State, but it's quite a number. So
he's
Dave,
also on the board of trustees, everybody. So I get questions from David every day. So so thanks. It feels like a normal day, and it's good to see you, David. Thank you so much. And
Same
the
with you.
questions are passionate. So thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to share a comment as a retired business owner and someone that spent 3 decades in downtown Keene. Melinda talked about the really challenging part of reorganizing the business structure and made reference to an outside consulting firm by the name of Huron that came in and provided some professional advice. That same consulting firm is also gone through the same process at UNH and Plymouth. The goal is to put all 3 institutions in the best possible point of strength moving forward. So I just wanted to add that as a comment.
Thank you, David. And the challenges of making sure we're nimble and ready is in all of higher ed, but the university system and our board, we've been working as a team, and all 3 residential campuses are going through the same process right now. It is not unique to Keene State. We were ahead of the curve to some degree because when I came in, for all the reasons we described, we had to adapt. But all 3 campuses are going through this process right now.
excellent. Well,
Thanks, David.
thank you, David. And let me turn to Kenny Ballard, who had a question he posted in the chat box. Do you want to just summarize your question, Kenny?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. And Melinda, great to see you. And thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to meet with all of us. I was just curious, I'm on the marketing committee with Phil and for the chamber, and interested to get your perspective on the relationship between the university, the college, and the business leaders. It sounds like it's been very, very positive. But as someone who sits on the marketing committee for the chamber, is there something that we can do and align ourselves even better given these very, very challenging times, both for the college and also for the business community? What can we do together to amplify, you know, the relationship and also to tell the Keene story even more effectively?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kenny. And I think part of the priority focus for this institution must be to be a better partner. And so we've tried to make sure that we are increasingly engaging with the business community and not. And one of the things I've been in higher ed long enough to know that a lot of times colleges appear and say, here's what we have for you. Please take advantage of it, rather than what do you need from us and how can we work together to get you the parts of the work that you need on your workforce talent pipeline development. How can we help where it makes sense for us? How can we bring partners in to help where there is strength that we don't need to recreate and we're more efficient? and how do we work with you to leverage your wisdom in our classrooms? And I think we've made some really good progress. The Business Hub is probably the highest and most visible example of what's been possible for us. We need to do that across our curriculum, across the business community in the city of Keene. And I think the Chamber is a really important asset to help us know what are the business needs, what are the educational needs, and what are the collaborative spaces that we could get into together. One of the things that Elizabeth Dragon and the city team and I talk a lot about is, do we have infrastructure that we can collaborate more actively and make available to the business community? So we've talked about trying to light up some of the high-speed internet wire that we have to light up Main Street, because we have capacity that we're not using. I know that there are challenges associated with FCC requirements and lots of other details, but that's one example of probably 15 of assets the college has as a public institution that we could make available to the city, and we must. It is part of our public good. And I don't think we've gotten into those questions or those requests as directly as we could. And the Chamber can help us know, are there assets that we have? Are there educational programs that you need that you're not seeing in our current suite? And help us think about ways to meet that either ourselves or through partnership with the community college, the career and technical ed centers, or the Antioch University here in our back door, but frankly, the whole university system. What resources can we bring that we don't need to stand up? We just need to make available. And I think we have to be better at that. And what you can tell us will help us get to that faster. I think the only other thing I would say is if you can help us by building career pathways for our students. I think we've had great success. CNS, More Nanotech, we have a number of partners who we work with, and many of our students who are out in the community. And again, because of our deep discussions around our municipal services agreement with the city, we've talked about ways for students from Keene State to engage in career pipeline opportunities with the city. And if they are successful, how can we keep them here? And part of that is showing the students the career opportunities that exist in our private community, in our private businesses, in our nonprofit businesses, and in our municipal government. And so I think helping us open the door to your businesses and working with you to create internship pathways, clear expectations for the talent you want, so we get you the right people. But then if we can do that, I think we'll retain more students in the city of Keene, but we need your help to open the doors and know what's possible on that side, and then find ways to coherently get our students to you in timelines that work for you. And so I think on both sides, how can we help you and how can you help us? I think that those are really important collaboration moments for us. We've had great success. They're pilots, they're deep relationships with single partners. How do we get broader? And I think that's something where you can help advise. What do you need to get that broader access? What are we not providing? And we could talk about what we need and what we're not able to seem to break into. And I'm open for that. Our team is open. Veronica Rosa, who I'm going to nominate if the Chamber's looking for another college rep. Veronica Rosa is our advancement lead, and she works on our private partnership work. She'll be a brilliant addition, and if anyone can get to action, it'll be Veronica helping us think about ways to advance this. But Kenny, I really appreciate it. And I think it's interesting that all of our relationships or all of our success is about relationship. It's not about the two institutions just naturally coming together. It's about someone knowing someone and trying to sit down and get it started, and then it just grows. So I think we need to do more of that. Let's leverage those relationships and make it easier for people to do business with Keene State. That's the long vision. The near term, help our students know what the requirements are, help the community understand that some of our requirements are not obtrusive, but if our students are walking downtown and people are not wearing masks and our bars are closer than 6 feet and no one's wearing masks, this will be a challenging public health crisis for us all. And it's not about Keene State necessarily. We've added critical mass of numbers, but we're going to know what our student status is and we're going to be isolating them. It's really going to have to be a partnership to help us get through this next year and whatever the future brings on the other side of the pandemic. But we can't just focus on one thing. I think that's been the exhaustion everyone's feeling as we're trying to look to the future and at the same time adapt to the present, and it's daunting. But I really appreciate the support.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for the question, Kenny. And the chamber can definitely help play a role in what you're talking about. We'll follow up with your team, in the near future.
That's great. Thank you.
I saw Ann Goodrich is had a question in the chat box. Do you want to kind of paraphrase your question? It's a little bit along the lines of what Melinda was just talking about, but do you want to say anything more about it?
Sure. So hello, I'm from Franklin Pierce, and I'm also a mom, a working mom, trying to balance all these pieces. And one of the big questions that we're wrestling with, or I and other school nurses and all of these folks, is the impact of how bringing these college kids to our community is going to shift the numbers. I'm one of those moms, right, that's watching all of these graphs, and are we yelling, are we green, and how many numbers do we have? And really, I think it's so important that we are helping students understand the greater impact to the Cheshire Monadnock region.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the question. And I think one of the things that I think is hard about this pandemic in general is that it is circulating in the population. We just don't know it. And I think there's a false sense of comfort and confidence. What we know about are the cases that actually result in hospitalization, or people ill enough to want to know, is that what they have contracted? So I think the testing and the symptom tracking and the other work that the colleges all around our state are trying to do will help us be able to isolate and understand. And I think the long vision of, will we get a vaccine? What is the herd immunity? How do we slowly allow ourselves to develop immunity to this virus? Those are all of the parameters people are trying to think through. The one thing that I will say is we, in trying to move this forward, we're working really closely with the hospital, and we're looking at hospital, the indicators that the hospital's tracking. Why they're part of our team is, what are the case rates? What are the hospitalization levels that we're seeing at Cheshire Medical Center, at Spear Memorial in the Plymouth community? And what are the case rate changes in Cheshire County? So on our dashboard, it's not just what we're doing at Keene State. We're also pulling in state data. We're working closely with Health and Human Services at the statewide scale. Johns Hopkins is developing for us a regional predictive model to help us see for the university system of New Hampshire, based on the numbers we're seeing, or what are some of the predictions, so that we can use predictive models to make a decision before something happens as well. So we're really trying to, at the university system level, be very aggressive about looking at statewide change, regional change within Cheshire County, city change within Keene, and make some predictions so that we don't continue beyond a point where we could have averted something. And I think that's really, and people are very concerned, and I respect and understand it. But I also believe that it's going to be essential for us, because I don't think this is a short run. Even if COVID-19 gets a vaccine, there will be another COVID. This is a future for us, sadly, of circulating influenza type illnesses. And we need to find a way to use the science and try to exist as much as we can in a normal state. And I'm confident that we have everything in our plan to help us safely return. And if we aren't safe as we get here, as the numbers start going south, we can't. We're going to have to retreat and try to think again about what's next. And I think all colleges need to be ready to do that. You know, we've seen people open the early indication. We had a couple of colleges open before us. They closed within 5 days, the bigger ones, because they didn't enter with a clean baseline. They did not know the status universally of their student base. I think what we're trying to do in the university system is open as clean as we can, knowing COVID status. And if we can't get a handle on it with all of our requirements, we can't stay in a close community. It's going to be an altered state for us to pivot to. So the students asked me, which risks are you accepting? And I said, there are risks on all sides. It's 40% of our business to not have residential students living on campus. It's a 40% impact. And that's the same or greater for Franklin Pierce and others. I mean, this is a huge impact. And the reality is I don't think it's this year alone. So we're trying to plan and do everything we can to position ourselves, and we're going to give this a really aggressive run. And if we can't do it, we'll retreat and we'll plan again for the next round and try to figure out what to do with it. But your question's really important, and I do wonder, education in general, bringing people close together when you don't know what the circulation is a very, very concerning risk. And I have a 3- and 7-year-old as well. So I'm on both sides of this thinking, good Lord, we don't have enough capacity to test everyone, but it would make it a lot easier, surely, for us to get through this.
Well, thank you very much for that question. It's a very important question. For those of you who don't know, Melinda's PhD is biology related. So
it's the worst possible combination of being a president and a toxicologist and public health analyst. It's like, really, how did this happen? Yeah.
So
I'm not an expert.
So you have conversations with yourself, I'm sure, with the 2 different hats on.
Too many.
Yeah.
People wonder.
There's a question here I see from Mark Freiberger. Mark, do you want to jump in and summarize your question, or I can read it as well?
It's pretty simple. I mean, you touched on it already, Melinda. So what is the threshold for positive tests that will trigger a modification to the current, your current plan? I mean, you said you're going to test everybody and you're going to test weekly and baseline, but if we have an outbreak, how do you define an outbreak? And then, I mean, have you walked through what the potential various scenarios are to, going from completely open to completely closed? Is there a hybrid? I mean, can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. So thanks, Mark. And in fact, with each of those levels, there are 5 different key metrics that we're tracking. So it's number of positive cases, number of isolation beds, hospital capacity, rate. It's really the rate change. We've worked really closely with the state epidemiologist. It's not, we know we'll see positive cases. We're seeing university-wide right now about a 0.4% positive case rate out of those returning students, faculty, and staff. It's very low compared to what we thought an asymptomatic population. No one knew what this would look like. We thought it could be as high as 20 to 30%. We're seeing 0.4%. So what we're going to track, that's our baseline rate. We'll look at incidence change in that baseline rate in the whole population. We'll look at rate change day to day over 3 day. We'll look at the personal connection and availability for beds and quarantine space, and all of those together help inform the decision of go to remote, where students are no longer in classrooms, that they're staying in their residence halls or in their residences, and where that's kind of the intermediate step. And then we might have would reduce the load, but have certain clinical courses still be on class if we, as a second level of the hybrid. So we're working through those now. We have detailed input from Cheshire Medical Center. We are awaiting final input from DHHS, and then those dashboards will go live. The UNH team is creating a data warehouse of all of the data, the testing data, the state data, the city data. And so we'll have that real time, and that's what we'll be watching twice daily to see what's happening with the rates in these early weeks, and then continue twice daily if needed to stay on top of it. But they're all numeric based, and they're informed by hospital, state, and our own testing results as well. So
Great.
thanks.
That's very thorough. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And the dashboard is tedious, but you'll be seeing it as we go live with it on the web next week, or 2 weeks from now, I'm sorry.
No, I think that's great, and that kind of transparency, I think, is very much appreciated by the community. I'm mindful of the time. We're coming up on 10 o'clock. Is there anybody else who'd like to add either a question or a comment before we wrap things up? Okay.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the privilege to be here. Thanks for all the work. There's so many of you I know and have had the privilege to work with throughout my time in Keene. But the college, on behalf of the college, we are deeply indebted to the support we received from the chamber and the business community. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Well, at the risk of ending on time or a minute ahead of time, I would like to thank everybody for being here. We are going to try to continue to do these coffee and conversation events on a regular basis and try to make them as timely as possible. So stay tuned for information about the next one. We're not exactly sure when that's going to be, but we have some things in the irons in the fire on that. So thank you all for joining us this morning, and thank you, Melinda, for taking time out of your normal Tuesday morning schedule, which you can get back to immediately.
Right.
And I wish everybody a great rest of your day on this sunny Tuesday.